So here's an old model from the 19th century of memory, which actually in the 21st century has come back as a pretty good one, as a metaphor anyway. So the idea is that rain comes down on the ground and there's a little irregularities randomly there. And at some point those irregularities will be a little more responsive to the rain and a little channel will form. And the channel acts as an amplifier. And so wherever that channel got started, it starts funneling lots more water through it. Other water is draining into it, and all of a sudden it starts cutting deeper. And you get these gullies. And you get down into these gullies, you have to remember to look up because everything down there in this gully is kind of pink. You could think that the world is pink. And in fact, if you get into a real gully, one of my favorites is the Grand Canyon. By the way, that's only 100 million years of erosion to get the Grand Canyon. It's relatively recent. You get into one of these things and the enormity of what you see outwards dwarfs what you can see if you look up, if you've ever been on one of these things. You're just in a different world. It's a pink world. You don't think about climbing out of it, you think about moving along in it. And so I'm going to take that gully world and flatten it out. Here's our pink world. And let's take human thought as being like an ant. And that ant can move all over this two-dimensional world. Our world to us is basically two-dimensional. Maybe a sphere to larger beings, but for us it's basically flat. And we can move all over it. We can make plans. We can encounter obstacles. We can solve those problems and get around them. So in this two-dimensional world here, we have all the paraphernalia of living and thinking. And if we grew up in that world, we don't know it's pink. Right? Because that's all there is. That is the background color. It's the thing we are least interested in because it's the most constant thing. But every once in a while, you might have a little blue thought. Could be waking up in the morning, taking a shower. But remember, we grew up in this world. We went to church. We have parents. We go to school. Pink. Pink is what the reality is. But every once in a while, you get a kerpow. That kerpow is out of that world. It's actually an escape from that world. And in the old days, when people had one of these, they would start a new religion. Because how many people have had a kerpow of any kind? Like, the technical word for a kerpow is holy shit. How many people have had come on, how many people have had a holy shit? Holy shit. Where does it come from? So the subjective sense we have is we didn't have that thought. Something put that thought into our head. It just happened. So of course, if you don't have science and you're not wired to check out the kerpows, it seems to come from the heavens. Okay, so we dip into another world. This world, let's call it a blue world, blue plane world. And there are three things here. This explains why we have trouble making progress. If we treat our beliefs as reality, then how sane is blue? The answer is, well, it's not sane. Sanity is relative to the things we believe are true. So the first thing is you've immediately turned yourself into a crackpot for a few nanoseconds. And that's one of the fists that comes down and squashes you back out into the pink world. I don't want to be crazy. Second one is when you're trying to explain this idea to somebody else, they really have to go through a similar process. This is probably the most difficult thing about an age of invention like the one that we live in. The inventors actually, invention is actually relatively easy with the right kind of funding. So the problem is getting something, is essentially pulling other people into a blue world, given that the blue world isn't really completely nutty. And then the third idea is that the blue plane is also a gully. So they have a half-life. So each one of these things, salvation! This pink context can actually seem to be everything that is in our world. If we grew up in the Grand Canyon, we might never even think to look up. It's all around, and we wouldn't even know it was pink. Because, as McLuhan said, I don't know who discovered water, but it wasn't a fish. But every single thing is pink. And we don't know it's pink because we've never seen anything but pink. So this is a context that we think of as reality, rather than something that we believe in or something that we've only been brought up in. And if you don't know about wheels, this sort of works, right? Have you ever had a flat and had the drive on it? Anybody? Sort of works. And if you don't know about something better, you might think that's what a wheel is. Similarly, a full glass of water holds a half glass. And so for the creature that's comfortable in the half glass, the creature can swim in that, but also has the opportunity to go up to the top there. But if you only give the half full glass out, that creature has no opportunity to explore the top and might start thinking that that's reality. So a very important thing to understand about today is that in many important respects, normal has been redefined downward. So the things we take to be normal today in many ways are just shadows of better ideas in the past. Only sometimes was this a good idea because, like all ideas, the Kerpows themselves are usually mediocre down to bad. But they have this epiphany, epiphanic feeling attached to them that makes them seem so true, so perfect, so apt, so much from God. Now, today, what we need to do when we have ideas like this is to use some of the methods of science to try and deal with this new insight. And Kessler had a very interesting side comment. They point out that the emotional reaction connected with the Kerpows range from laughter to the aha of science to the long drawn-out sigh of art. And so, because he pointed out that a joke is an example of an act of creation where the purpose of the joke is to lead you down the pink pathway and then suddenly reveal it's about something blue. And you have this emotional explosion. In science, the aha is often accompanied by laughter. And I wonder if anybody would be willing to, I can barely see you out there, but I wonder if anybody has an idea about why scientists laugh when they make a discovery. It'd be so much more effective if somebody in the audience volunteered. Anybody? Just, huh? What's funny about it? Yeah, and it's, I mean, basically the way scientists think about it is the universe, just because they had an insight doesn't mean the universe suddenly changed to be in accord with that insight.
They saw something they hadn't seen before.
And it was always there. That's what's cool about it. So science is all about dealing with stuff that's right in front of our noses, except we can't see it. And this long drawn-out sigh about art, Kessler pointed out, was that one of the great functions of art, especially high art, is to remind us that there are other contexts. Because we basically pull into simple little goldfish bowls for efficiency. And we need something to constantly remind us that there's a lot more perspectives on ideas. And then, of course, the last thing is that it really helps to have a lot of different kinds of knowledge, because then that gives you a way of colliding contexts that are normally not thought to have any overlap at all. And for the learning stuff that I've been interested in for so long, the kicker for most modern knowledge, most knowledge that happened after 1600, generally requires an enormous amount of effort on the learner to understand it, as indeed does McLuhan's stuff. Because the greater the invention, the weirder the discovery, the more effort the learner has to make in order to escape from their pink plane into the blue plane of the particular idea.